Well, hello and welcome again to our reading of Thucydides, the Pentacontaetia, and we're up to chapter 91. So, Themistokles, of course, has gone off to Sparta, and he's been forestalling meeting with them, giving the Athenians time to rebuild the wall without the Spartans finding out about it. So, hoide aquantes to men Themistokles, epethon to diaphilion autou, ton de alon aphiknumenon kai saphos categorunton hotit te kis detai tekai ede psuphos lambane, uk eken hopos cre apistesai. So, but they, this is the Spartans, hearing or perhaps listening to Themistokles, or rather, those listening were persuaded by, this takes a dative, so those listening were persuaded by Themistokles, diaphilion autou, on account of his friendship, of his kindness. So they trusted him. Now we get a men here in a nice det here balancing it, but genitive absolute, turn alone aphikumenon, but others arriving, kai saphos categorunton, and clearly making accusations, hoti that, take his detai, possibly impersonal here, that a wall was being built. Marchant in his commentary says supply totekos, so the wall is being built, much the same really. So a wall is being built, and already lambane, it takes hypsos, height. So we would say it had already taken height. It's more vivid in the present. Uk akon hopos cray epistesai. Now, akon often has the sense of to be able to, and we have to supply something like to see here. So they were not able to see, hopos, how it was necessary, epistesai, to disbelieve. So they were unable to see how they might disbelieve. Gnuste ekanos kelue autus me logos malon paragesthai epempsai svon auton andras hoitinus crestoi kai pistos anangelusi skepsaminoi. As usual, the very cunning Themistokles says, well, go and send some of your own people that you trust to go and actually check it out. So, gnus, ekanos is referring to Themistokles, so he, gnus, realizing this, he bids historic present, he bids them may not paragesthai, to be misled. Now we get malon and a, so it's rather than to be misled with words, rather than that, to send men of send their own men of themselves, to send their own men, those who were Christoi, well, the best men, perhaps reliable, who were reliable, and skepsaminoi, after they had made an inspection, anangelusi, this is future, they will report back, pistos, faithfully. Well, the Spartans fell for the ruse, so apostelusin un, kai periauton hot Themistokles tois Athenios krufa pempe, keluen hos heikis de epiphanos kataskein, kai me aphene prinan autoi palin komisthosan. I'll just stop it there and we'll translate. So, therefore they sent them off, and Themistokles, Pempe, historic present, sends, Krufa, probably an adverb here, secretly, So Themistocles sends secretly to the Athenians periauton regarding them. So he sends off a message secretly warning the Athenians about them, keleuon, bidding them hos haikista epiphanos, something like as openly, as least openly as possible. So with as little show as possible, kataskein, to detain them, and kaimei aphaenai, and not to release them, prinan autoi palin komisthosin, not to release them until they themselves, that is, Themistocles and his fellow ambassadors, might be conveyed, this is a passive here, a passive subjunctive, might be conveyed palin back, and then parenthetically, eidega kai hekonautoi hoi sum presbes, Habronicus te ho Luciclius kai Aristides ho Lysimachou, Angelontes ekein hikonos totekos. The explanatory point here is, of course, that he says that they might be transferred back, because in the earlier bit it was only Themistocles there. So Thucydides explains that for already also his fellow ambassadors had come to him, namely Habronicus, the son of Lysicles. Now you may recall he was used as a messenger between Thermopylae and Artemision in 480 in Herodotus Book 8. And Aristides, the son of Lysimachus, this is the guy who's also known as Aristides the Just, and he was one of Themistocles' chief rivals. Interestingly, Plutarch mentions that as young men, the Themistocles and Aristides, he says, had competed for the love of the same boy, and so their dislike of each other went back to their youth. He, of course, was ostracized in about 485 or possibly 482, and he died in 468. So Aristides, the son of Lysimachus, reporting the wall, literally, now echo plus an adverb is just used like Amy, to be sufficient, that is, sufficiently high. So that was all parenthetical, and now we return to the subject of Themistocles. So for ephobetai, he feared lest hoi Lacedaemonioi, the Spartans, no longer might release svas them, hopoti saphos acousian, optative, whenever they might hear saphos clearly. Hoi teun Athenaioi tus presbus hos apostele kateikon. The Athenians then, and the tech is just connecting here, the Athenians then, as had been ordered, as instructed, kateikon, they detained the ambassadors. Kai Themistocles ep elthon tois Lacedaemonios entaltha de phaneros epon hoti hemen polis von tekistai adi hosta hikonai enai sosdain tus en oikuntas aedeti boulontai Lacedaemonioi hoi sumachoi presbyres thy parasvas. This is a very, very long sentence, this one. I might just hold it here. So, and Themistocles, ep elthon, well, having gone forward, just to get the epi into it, having gone forward to the Spartans, At that time, then, he said clearly that Hamen Polis, now we get a men, and there's the debt down here to balance it. So the city, their city, Tetakistai, had been walled in. Now, at that point, hosti hikonai einai sosdain tus enoi kuntas. So as to be sufficient, sosdain is to say, but probably here to protect or keep safe, might be better for sosdain, to keep safe the inhabitants. And if the Spartans or their allies, Bulonta, if they wish, presbuesthai, to come on an embassy to them, that is to the Athenians, hos pros diagignos skontas toloipon eanai, that they would come in the future to one's deciding, so being able to determine, to ones who are determining, being able to decide. Now we get a te and kai. Sumphora is their own futures, their own circumstances. So circumstances is probably good here. So in future, to come to those who are able to determine both the circumstances for themselves, kai takoina, and for the common interests, that is, of all the Greeks. Tain dega polin hoti edoke eklipain emenon einai es kai estas nas es benai, anu ekanon ephason gnontes tolmesai, kai hossa al metekanon buluesthai, budinos husteroi gnome phananai. This is a fairly difficult little section, this one. So, and this is all after he said. We're going to get lots of, after edoke. So, for, when it seemed to be better, eklipain, to desert the city, and esbainai, to get on board the ships, they said that anu ekanon, that without them, that is without the Spartans, having made they decided, or they said they would dare it, they decided to dare it, Gnontes, having formed the decision, anu ekanon, apart from them, that is, apart from the Spartans. In other words, he's referring back to the fact that leading up to the Battle of Salamis, when they decided to evacuate the city and get on board ships, they did that on their own accord. They said that they dared to do it, having formed their own opinion without them, without the Spartans. Kai hossa al metekanon buluesthai, and in regard and in all matters of joint deliberation, so of all such things as they did along with them, so in all matters where they took counsel with them, again, as after this is said, husteroi, they appeared to be husteroi, second to none, gnome in their decision. So that's a difficult little passage there. Let me just go through that again. So, and in regard to as many things as they took counsel with them, that is, with the Spartans. So when they did take counsel with the Spartans, he said they appeared to be husteroi, second to none, gnome in their judgment. Well, now we get lots of these infinitive and accusative expressions here. We have to understand that he said. And it seemed therefore to them also now to be better. So, and now it seemed to be better to them for their own city, Takos Ekain, to have a wall, kai idia tois politais kai estus pantas sumakois of philimoteron esesthai. And both privately for their citizens, so both in respect in a private matter for their citizens, and that it would be more useful, it would be better, both for them, for their citizens in private, and for all the allies. So he says now it is better that their city has a wall, and that it would be more profitable privately for their own citizens, that is in Athens, and for all their allies. Uga hoion te anai. Now this is this hoios te ami idiom, but it's in the infinitive here. For he said, understood, it would not be possible, it was not possible, now we go down to here, and now it's s top plus the infinitive here, so it's to deliberate. Koinon, I think, is adverbial here, so for common deliberation, so it would not be possible to deliberate in common, may, except from a matching parascue state of preparedness, which was comparable or equal in some way. So that's a very difficult little section there. So for he said it was not possible with regard to deliberation in common, so it was not possible to deliberate in common in a way which was like or comparable or equal in some way, may, except from a matching state of preparedness. And he said either it was so here's the FA. So he said it was necessary either for everyone then to be without a wall, and for them to make an alliance. So he said it was necessary to make an alliance for everyone being without a wall, or to consider these things also ekain orthos to be right, or to be just, the right thing to do. So he's saying if we're going to form an alliance, then everyone should be the same. Either everyone has no wall, or if that's not the case, then they should regard these things, that is the building of the wall at Athens, to be right. And of course, the Spartans had built their own wall at the Isthmus of Corinth, although their own city remained wall-less until the Hellenistic period. So Themistokles is saying here, well, everyone else has got to give up their wall if we're not allowed to have one. And of course, the Spartans would not enforce that. And so that's the end of chapter 91.